center here. I'm the associate director at the center. I'm from and I am from Darfur. Everyone now knows where is Darfur more than Sudan. So on behalf of all people in the center and the African Studies and at the university here, we just like to welcome you. And later on we will make more introduction about who is who and the center. But at the same time also we want this event to know each other. And I have some label tags like outside. I mean, I will just distribute here. And it will be good, like if you just type your name and the country where you are from, or if you are Philadelphia, so you could just write Philadelphia instead of Mali or Sudan or Senegal. So without further ado, I want to introduce our speaker here on this for this event of this project, building Muslim spaces in a secular society, the African Muslim in Philadelphia. That is the title of the project. We want to contextualize it, and specifically here at this time. And we were lucky to have a long-time friend and colleague who is here with us to share these moments with us. He will not talk to us like for a long time, but also he will just make the introduction about the subject of Islam in Africa. Our presenter is Professor Maghan Keita from Villanova University, just in the outskirts of Philadelphia. Professor Maghan Keita, he is a professor of history, and also he has a lot of hats in his head now. He is the director for the Arab and Islamic Studies. He is the director of Africana Studies. He is the director of summer graduate program. So his plate is full, but he was interested to share some of his thoughts with us. Professor Maghan wrote profusely on issues that touch on Africa, African American studies, world histories, political economy, and development studies. And his span of work also is not limited to several research institutions here in the US, but also in Africa, and specifically in the western part of Africa. He has published and has worked in the reputed journals, and as well as he has his own books on different subjects. Some of them, one of the titles of his book, A Political Economy of Healthcare in Senegal. Another book, Conceptualizing or Reconceptualizing Africa, the Construction of African Historical Identity. Another work called Reading the Sphinx, Race, the Writing of History and American Cultural Wars. Just among many, I don't want to go into that. So without further ado, Maghan Keita.
Let me make two disclaimers first. One, I am not a Muslim. I'm sorry for that. Forgive me, huh? So did I come here to talk to you about Islam in Africa? I'm invited because I have some expertise on it. I've studied it. The second thing is that Professor Ali Dinar has given me all these titles and all these responsibilities. I got up yesterday, I shaved so that I would look a bit younger. I am too old to do all those things anymore, but I pass them on to people who have much more energy and are much wiser than myself. So I'm only wearing one hat these days, and it's too much for me already. I'm delighted to be here, and as Ali said, I am not intent on attempting to talk for all time. This is going to be 20 or 30 minutes, a broad brush of the questions of Islam in Africa. It's important that we talk about Islam in Africa because you've decided to gather as African Muslims to celebrate Ramadan. as Africans. It's not that you decided to say that there is a separation between yourselves and other Muslims, but you are recognizing that there are several distinct cultural variations that make your notion of Islam and what you do at this particular moment yours. I state that because I want you to think about how the world may have looked in a pre-Islamic space. And not so much how it may have looked in a pre-Islamic space that we would characterize as Africa, but think of it as a pre-Islamic space in the heartland out of which Islam emerged. Just pause for a moment and think about that. And think about that in relationship to these three items that I have at the top of my list. Antara. How many of you know Antara? Anyone? Antara? I'll come back to it. How many of you are aware of the crows? The black crows? How many of you know al-Baladuri? And al-Baladuri's famous dictum, the black man is the lord of the people of the East. I just begin there. I begin there because I want to begin there by indicating that Africans are in fact enmeshed in the entire culture out of which Islam emerged. Antara. Antara is the prototype for heroism in the Islamic world. That he is a pre-Islamic figure. The way in which he has historicized in Islamic space and in pre-Islamic space is that he is in fact the son of an African slave mother and an Arab noble father, someone from the peninsula. He becomes famous because he has done all the work for his father. That is the work of valor, the work of heroism, the work of a warrior. And one day he comes to his father and he says, you should grant me my freedom. You should make me, in fact, a man among men. And his father says, oh, no, I won't do that. I won't do that unless you win all these battles. And so the battles that Antara wins become legend in terms of crafting the very idea of what it means to be a man in Arab society. Isn't that? Antara is so famous that he is sung about. There's poetry composed here. So we come to the crows, the black crows. They're called black crows because, of course, crows are black. Unless you are a Senegalese corporal. Senegalese corporal are black, but they have big white dresses. They wear vests. They look like they're dressed up to go out having a good time. But here, these black crows symbolize the African presence again in terms of articulating what is going to be the culture of the Arab Peninsula. It's poetry, it's song, the lyrical voice of Arabic itself, and the lyrical voice of Islam. They play this part. And then al-Baladuri saying this and being second in the 10th century by al-Jahid, arguing that Africans, that black people, are in fact essential to the project of Islam. Now we miss that at times. We miss that in many of the histories that come out. We miss that in terms of some of the most recent histories that have come out. Pulitzer Prize winner, David Levering Lewis, won his Pulitzer for his 2-volume series on William Edward Burghardt divorce. Excellent piece of work. He makes the same mistake that most make in talking about the question of Islam. The African is not present. So here, in God's crucible, Islam in the making of Europe, Africans we know Islam. They are not there. They are not there even though there's always the Berber question. They are not there even though there's the question of the Tuareg. They are not there even though we should understand, though we hardly think about it, that coterminous, at the same moment that Islam is spreading westward across the North African littoral, it is also spreading southward along the Zan, the East African coast. 6 centuries before the rise of Islam, the Zanj is in existence. It is a melange of Africans and Arabs, all right? You know it as the Swahili coast. You know Kiswahili, huh? You know the tongue that is spoken from Berbera to Safar. It's an African tongue. It has Arabic words, but it is an African tongue. It is a melange between Africans and Arabs, and it sets the stage for, in fact, the growth of Islamic civilization on the East African coast at the same time that Islam is marching westward across North Africa. But we hardly ever talk about that. It's only spoken of when we get to Ibn Battuta, the 13th century. It's only spoken of at the end of the 15th century when we have people like Maghan and others who are circumnavigating Africa and trying to find their way to the east. And who takes them to the east? The pilots, who are in fact the employees of the princes of these East African city-states that we know as Islam. Islamic states governed by Africans and Afro-Arabs. They call themselves different things. They may call themselves Zanzibar. They may call themselves Persians to some degree, but we know who they are. We can look across the strait at Yemen, and we can see Yemenis who call themselves Swahili, simply because of the interchange between these groups of people and the ways in which they understand cultural and religious production.